There are moments in life that never fade, like a crooked tattoo you never wanted. For me, that moment came on a rainy afternoon in Seattle, when a single message erased everything I thought was real. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 38. I live in a small apartment in North Seattle with my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie. I'm a freelance graphic designer, which means I work at a desk by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass, the smell of coffee in the air, the sound of keys tapping under my fingers. My life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful, until the day Daniel, my husband, vanished from my life, with just a few lines of text. That afternoon, Seattle was wrapped in a misty drizzle, the kind that seeps through your coat, through your skin, and settles in your bones. I was finishing a poster design for a local coffee shop when my phone buzzed. The sender, Daniel. My heart skipped in that familiar way. I thought it would be him telling me he was on his way home, or asking what was for dinner, but instead, the screen showed words that made the floor drop out from under me. Rachel, I've moved to Barcelona with Vanessa. I've withdrawn all of our savings. I hope you understand, and I wish you and Sophie the very best. I froze. For a moment, I wasn't even sure I was breathing. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped the phone. My heart pounded. But my mind went blank. I opened my banking app. Balance, $412. Rent this month, $2,400. Today was the 27th. In the other room, Sophie giggled, feeding her doll a plastic cookie. She had no idea her father had just walked out, or that our world had just collapsed. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I walked into her room, pulled her into my arms, and held her like letting go might make her disappear too. That evening, I kept everything normal. "Mommy, is Daddy coming home for dinner?" she asked. I bit my lip. "No, sweetie, Daddy's busy today." "Can we make bunny-shaped cookies?" she asked. I nodded, even though my mind was filled with nothing but numbers. 412.2, 4,000.0. When Sophie finally fell asleep, I sat in the dark, the cold blue glow of my phone lighting the room. I read Daniel's message again, and again. Each time it cut deeper. He hadn't just left me. He'd taken everything we'd saved over 8 years. I thought of all the signs I had ignored. The late nights, the phone always face down, the quiet withdrawals from our joint account. I had trusted him, too much. Outside, the rain kept falling. In Seattle, people get used to rain. But that night, it sounded like a ticking clock, counting down to the moment everything would fall apart. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. Only one thing was certain. I could not let Sophie lose this home. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Seattle in November is always damp and gray. But today, the sky felt heavier than I did. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Sophie, made coffee, sat down at my computer. I had to know the truth. I opened the shared email account Daniel and I use for bills. Most of it was old statements. But then, a new thread, 3 weeks old. Subject line, lease agreement, Barcelona apartment. Signed, Vanessa Reed. My hands turned to ice. Daniel had signed a lease in Europe. While still coming home for dinner, smiling at me over coffee, asking, "Want cream?" This wasn't sudden. It was planned. I clicked the attachment. Photos filled the screen. White walls, wide windows, sunlight pouring in, a world away from Seattle's cold rain. And at the bottom, a single line that made my stomach twist. "Evelyn has transferred $20,000. Daniel will handle the rest." Evelyn, his mother, 8 years of marriage, and she'd never truly liked me. Polite at Christmas dinner, yes, but her eyes, cold. Now I knew. She wasn't just on his side. She was financing his escape. I called Daniel. Blocked. Emailed him. Auto reply. "This inbox is no longer active." For a second, I wanted to break, but then Sophie laughed from her room, playing with her teddy bear. That laugh, it kept me standing. Later that day, the phone rang. Unknown number. "Rachel? This is Vanessa." I tightened my grip on the phone. "What do you want?" Her voice shook. "Daniel hasn't told you everything. He's filing for custody of Sophie. Evelyn's helping him." The words hit like ice water. Money. I knew he could be ruthless about. But Sophie? Vanessa's voice rushed on. They're digging up the time you had postpartum depression. They'll use it against you. My pulse pounded. Memories came flooding back. Those dark months after Sophie was born, the sleepless nights, the empty feeling. I'd survived it. But now, they would twist it into a weapon. That evening, I went to see an old friend-in-law. She studied me, then said quietly, Rachel, you need a lawyer. Now, and you need evidence. Fast. Back home, I got to work. Emails, bank statements, screenshots. Every scrap I could find. This wasn't just about money anymore. If I lost, I'd lose Sophie. That night, I stood over her bed, watching her sleep. You will never lose your mom, Sophie. I promise. Outside, the rain kept falling, but it didn't sound like a countdown anymore. It sounded like a call. It was time to fight. 3 days later, Seattle was still drowning in rain, but inside me, there was a different storm, fierce, uncontrolled. By then, I had a thick folder of evidence, the Barcelona lease, bank statements showing those quiet withdrawals, emails from Evelyn. It still wasn't enough, not if Daniel truly wanted Sophie. That night, after Sophie was asleep, my phone buzzed. Vanessa. Rachel, she said, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I can't keep this to myself anymore. Her voice was low, rushed, like someone might be standing right outside her door. Daniel has an account in Liechtenstein. He's been moving money slowly so no one notices. I have screenshots, the account paperwork, even emails from Evelyn telling him how to hide it. If you want them, I'll send them. I stayed silent for a moment, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Why? I asked. Because I'm not stupid enough to let him drag me down with him, and because of Sophie, she doesn't deserve this. 30 minutes later, the email came. Every file felt like a bullet aimed straight at Daniel. A bank statement with nearly $95,000, an email from Evelyn. Keep this off the books. Rachel can't trace it. I didn't know how long I sat staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut. The other part felt something ignite, not just anger, but hope. I had what I needed. The next morning, I walked into the office of Laura Chen, one of Seattle's toughest attorneys. 14th floor, rain blurring the city below. She shook my hand, firm and steady. After I told her everything, she looked me straight in the eye. We'll request an emergency hearing. And when we go to court, Rachel, you have to be stronger than you've ever been. Not just for yourself, for Sophie. We spent hours organizing the files, the hidden account, the lease, Evelyn's emails. Laura told me to document every single time Daniel had called or texted. Every detail matters, she said. That evening, I came home to find Sophie at the kitchen table, coloring a rainbow. She looked up. Mommy, this is for Daddy. I want him to know I still love him. The lump in my throat burned. I forced a smile. Let's keep it here, sweetie, so Daddy can see it when he visits. But inside, I knew I would do everything in my power to make sure no one could take her away from me. 2 days later, the court summons was served. Daniel would have to face me in Seattle. No emails, no blocked calls, no hiding. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, listening to rain drum against the glass, thinking about the last 8 years. The mornings making coffee for Daniel, the afternoons taking Sophie to the park, the nights watching movies while rain tapped the roof. All of it, now just shards of broken glass. But among those shards, I saw something else. I wasn't the same woman anymore. I was ready to fight. The morning of the hearing, Seattle was still drowning in rain, a fine, steady drizzle that felt like the whole city was holding its breath. I stood in front of the mirror wearing the navy dress Laura had picked, elegant but strong, hair tied back, hands still trembling. I wasn't afraid to face Daniel. I was afraid to lose, because if I lost, I'd lose Sophie. King County Courthouse stood in the center of downtown, its stone steps slick with rain. I gripped the handrail, Laura walking beside me, her pace quick, her gaze sharp as a blade. When we entered the courtroom, Daniel was already there. Gray suit, perfectly combed hair, calm like this was just another business meeting. Beside him, Evelyn, cream-colored coat, the same cold eyes I'd known for years. The hearing began. Daniel's lawyer went first, painting me as unstable. History of severe depression, unsteady income, an unstable environment for Sophie. Each word landed heavy, my pulse pounded, but Laura pressed her hand to the table, her signal for me to stay silent. Then it was her turn. She rose slowly, voice clear, steady. "This is not just a divorce, Your Honor. This is calculated betrayal, with documented financial fraud." One by one, she laid it out. The Barcelona lease signed before Daniel left, the bank withdrawals, Evelyn's fund-in, and then the final blow from Vanessa, the Liechtenstein account. The room went silent as Laura read Evelyn's email aloud. "Keep this off the books. Rachel can't trace it." I looked at Daniel. For the first time, his calm cracked. The opposing lawyer objected, but the judge allowed the evidence. "Relevant and serious," he said. Laura pressed on. "My client not only lost $45,000 in savings, but was deliberately cut off from financial information, all while being threatened with losing custody over past issues she has since overcome. This is a violation of trust, of the law, and most importantly, of a child's best interest." I could feel the weight of the room shifting. When the judge called a recess, I glanced at Daniel. He kept his head down. Evelyn sat rigid, her white-knuckled grip on her purse betraying her. After 2 more hours, the judge returned. His voice was firm. "Based on the evidence, primary custody is temporarily awarded to Mrs. Rachel Morgan. Mr. Daniel Morgan's visitation will be limited, and he must provide immediate financial support. The Liechtenstein account will be frozen for investigation. Mrs. Evelyn Morgan will be subject to review for potential financial fraud." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until it escaped. Laura's hand found my shoulder. "We've won the first battle." Across the aisle, Daniel's eyes were red, but he said nothing. Evelyn turned away, walking out as if no one else existed. I clutched the file to my chest, not for the papers inside, but for what they meant, proof that I hadn't given up. When I stepped out into the rain, it was still falling, but somehow I felt lighter. Sophie would be with me, and for the first time in weeks I could take a deep breath without feeling the pain in my chest. 3 months after the hearing, spring arrived in Seattle. The rains were longer now, but warmer, and sometimes a day of sunshine would slip through the gray like a small reward for surviving. Sophie and I had moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Queen Anne with a balcony overlooking Lake Union. Not big, not fancy, but ours, safe, peaceful. Every morning I woke early, made coffee, opened my laptop, and worked. More design projects came in. Old clients brought new ones. The busier I got, the more I felt in control again. Sophie started preschool nearby. Every afternoon I picked her up, and we'd stop at a little bakery at the bottom of the hill, 1 cupcake to share on the walk home. Daniel's visits were still limited. He called a few times, but I only answered with my lawyer on the line. Evelyn stayed silent. I heard she'd sold some properties to cover legal fees. The glittering parties she once flaunted, gone. Some nights after Sophie was asleep, I'd step out onto the balcony, look over the city, and think about everything that had happened. I once believed I would break. When Daniel walked out, when my bank account held just a few $100s, when rent was days away. I thought I was too small, too weak to fight people with more money, more power. But I learned my greatest strength wasn't in fighting Daniel or Evelyn. It was in protecting Sophie. One night, Sophie brought me a drawing, a house, 2 people inside, one with long brown hair, one with short curls. Above them, a rainbow. "Mommy, this is our new home," she said. "In here, it never rains inside, right?" I pulled her close. Tears spilled down my cheeks, but they were the light kind. "That's right, sweetheart. Here, it will never rain inside." Looking back, I know this story isn't just about loss or betrayal. It's about how someone can rise from the wreckage and rebuild. I'm no longer the trembling woman reading that message in a cold, damp apartment. I am Rachel Morgan, a mother, a survivor, and a winner. If you're watching this and feel trapped in something you think you can't escape, remember this: you are stronger than you think. The road may be long, it may rain for a while, but one day, the sun will come. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you'd like me to tell more true stories like this. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next emotional journey.